Good Friday evening, everybody. It's Friday, December 3rd, 2021. Jeremy Crosby here, Andrew Bamlin in the booth. We're ready to rock your shocks. Shocks?
We're going to shock the socks off.
We're going to shop the shocks off the shocks in the shop. Wow. Not even 28 seconds in, and it's already blown. We have a really busy show for you coming up. You don't have to listen to me too much today, which is a good thing. We'll be taking you out. Police Department wrapped up their annual food drive today. In fact, this morning, delivering what I would call a ton of food over to the Allied Food Pantry. We'll take you out there from that event this morning. And we're going to recap. We talked to the National Weather Service earlier in the month about winter weather awareness. And since winter is around the corner, Andrew, you know it's snowing like up north there. It is they are getting snow this weekend.
Yes,
up
they
in
are.
like Hayward and north of Green Bay, all that area. Yeah, 6 to 12. So
Oh boy.
from what I saw, it's going to be a lot. So if you got some travel plans this weekend, be on the lookout. So yeah, winter weather. We'll talk that coming up. All right, let's get to the headlines. And we start with that food drive. Fitchburg Police Department collecting just a ton of food this year. So important as well. And delivering that to the Allied Food Pantry this morning. Take a look.
Our annual food drive is going on today. It runs for about a month. It's organized by our records staff at our police department. We partner with our public works department, Edward Jones, Eagles School, as well as other area businesses in the past to try to raise as much canned goods, foods, non-perishable items, toys, all types of things for families in need. And we bring them here to the Allied Food Pantry here at the Boys and Girls Club. Every year they seem, the community and those that donate seem to really turn out. This year is no different. I don't know the exact weight of all of the goods that they've donated, but it seems very, very comparable to previous years. It's just another thing that we do in the police department that benefits the community. A lot of these things, we're not necessarily doing it for any of the the accolades or the attention. It's just something that we feel is important. We're able to partner with the Allied Food Pantry to get items for people, families in this neighborhood, in this area, things that they need, especially this time of year when it's needed the most. I've seen some extremely large amounts of food, donations, personal items, hygiene items, those types of things. And it's a testament to the area, to the community, to the giving hearts of people in and around the greater Madison area. I think this event is just a great partnership with our community, as well as the volunteers, the staff at our police department, whether it be sworn, non-sworn. They all kind of come together for this event. This is kind of one of their bigger events each year. They take a lot of pride in it because they know that it's contributing to something really good for the community, and it just hopefully will be able to brighten this holiday season for many people in this area.
All right, thank you to everybody who donated food. They'll be back next year, and you can still continue to bring food and donate food to Allied Food Pantry. Check out their website for more information. Take a quick break. Coming up next, we're talking winter weather awareness with my friend at the National Weather Service. It's next right here in Talking Fitchburg.
Hey, boss. Okay.
Said I'm fine.
Put me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at? Underlay, in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Bob.
You know you can talk to me.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us.
Ready!
That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu. And especially this year, no one has time to get sick. Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today, and I'm a huge fan, and he knows it. It's Tim Hallbach from the National Weather Service Milwaukee Sullivan office. Tim, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic.
Is it too early to say you're my hero? No, I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Yes, it is.
No, we're so excited to have you on here. It is Winter Weather Awareness Week, and it's a good time because right now in the weather seems like we just are getting that transition into snow. But when you look at this and getting prepared, just quickly recapping and going into this fall, are we behind in fall going into winter? Like, seems like things started really fast and slow. Then, like, where are we at as far as coming into this winter?
Well, things were a little bit slow because the growing season was extended quite a bit through October because we didn't really have any temperatures dropping below freezing for a good chunk of October. It's one of the warmest, if not the warmest, October that we've had here in Wisconsin. So from that aspect, things started late, in terms of getting any sort of cold. So it's probably going to be a little bit of a, seeing the actual cold air coming in and some of the snowflakes, it's going to be a little bit of a shock, but that's pretty typical for this time of year to have seen some of that. I know some people remember a few years ago on Halloween where we had quite a bit of snow and quite a bit of cold already. So just be thankful that we've had this long enough of a stretch. But as we get into December and all that, it's more and more likely that we're going to see more and more snow.
As far as trendings go, we were interviewing Clean Lakes Alliance in Dane County this past week. And something that struck me was their comment was the weather in Wisconsin is forever going to be changing. And we're probably going to see more of this warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. Is that kind of the trend that you guys are seeing at the weather office moving into the future?
So one of the main trends that we've seen is with lake ice. So during the wintertime when because our temperatures aren't as cold for as long of a period as they used to be, the amount of ice that we're seeing on the lakes is a lot lower than what it has been in the past. And there's been some interesting research from some folks in Madison. I'm not sure which lake it is, but basically they've been monitoring the amount of ice that's been on their lake for the last 100 some years. And, there's a starting point where you could walk all the way across the lake, and then an end point where all of a sudden, in March, April, the ice is gone. Well, that keeps on getting closer and closer and closer. And that period of having ice on the lake keeps getting shorter. So if there's anywhere that we've seen it, it's there, along with just some more precipitation in different times of the year, like in the spring and fall, which happens to be either planting or harvest season for the farmers in the state. So those are some of the general trends that we're seeing. And, with the wintertime, depending on the patterns you get, every winter that we have here is going to be a little bit different in terms of if you have those ups and downs with the weather pattern.
Now, Tim, do you buy into the Farmer's Almanac, to crazy weather experts out there on it's going to be a big snowy year, it's going to be a cold year, it's going to be a I don't know year? Where do you guys fall into that?
So we are part of the federal government, and we don't make more money if there's a big winter storm. We don't make more money if we forecast that there's going to be the coldest winter on record or anything like that. So we are an unbiased resource when it comes to here's what we think is going to happen. And that's what any of the forecasts that you get from us on a day-to-day basis are going to be. If anything, we get more stress when there is, a lot more of that extra stuff going on. So in terms of any of those, I can't comment on what their goals or initiatives are there.
Well, tell me there's like a poster in the break room with everybody guessing the period of how much snow there's going to be, the cold weather, and something else. Like, there's got to be some type of inside thing at the weather service office with you guys, right?
So there's two things, and we've kind of let it go the last couple of years, unfortunately, but we do we used to guess how much snow we'd get in an entire season, and then when the first inch of snow would occur. And we would just have like, someone would bring in like snacks for that person that day or something, or like, going into the spring or whenever we finalized the snowfall total. But unfortunately, we've kind of gotten away from that.
Well, I know you're still in some pretty good COVID protocols too, for keeping everybody safe. So I'm sure that didn't help anything. All right, well, we'll end the Jeremy asking random questions and get to some winter safety, because that's part of this conversation. This year, focusing in on more of the driving aspect, which makes sense. More people are hitting the road this year, and basically we've seen a lot of accidents out there because of people just being out on the road. But the winters in Wisconsin and roads, they just don't mix well, and that's just the classic case. So your first one is before hitting the road. That's where it starts.
Yeah, and that's where, if you know that there's going to be some snow, just giving yourself an extra 15-20 minutes to get to wherever your destination is can be really helpful to try to keep you away from getting into a bad accident. A lot of times, if there is even just a little bit of snow on the roads that make it slippery, and you're trying to drive at the same speeds that you would normally, that's where a lot of the accidents and the issues come up. So it's important just to give yourself a little bit extra time so that you can drive slower and be safe when you're trying to get to your destination. And that's one of the main key things we just tell people. We know you want to be strong, like, hey, we're Wisconsin, we get snow all the time, we can be tough and make it through this. But the biggest issues really come up when people are driving too fast for conditions and just haven't given themselves enough time to get to where they need to. We'd rather you get to your destination a little bit early, sit in your car, check your phone, from the parking lot of wherever you need to be. It's much better than having to drive too fast for the conditions.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting in the ditch and on your phone, trying to arrange transportation because of something that happened. As far as driving in the snow, I think the first snowfall every year, we'll get the list of 100 accidents that were State Patrol will be responding to, whatever. But basic tips besides getting there, what do you offer up Wisconsinites besides planning extra time?
So one of the things for me personally that I found is I've gotten snow tires for my car, where I change them out about this time every year, where my car, if I were to just leave the regular tires on there, it wouldn't handle very well in the snow. So I get winter snow tires, and man, that it's like night and day between how you can drive on just even a little bit of snow that's out there. It just really helps to get a little extra grip and be able to slow you down if there is some snow on the ground. So that's one of the main tools. We also just tell people to have a safety kit in the back of your car. You could envision if you do go into a ditch in the middle of a blizzard where first responders can't get to you, think about what kind of things you'd want to have in your car if you're stuck there overnight in the middle of a snowstorm. So things like a blanket, water. It might seem kind of silly, but that's a basic tool for being able to survive. And it shouldn't freeze in your car. It shouldn't freeze fast enough that you wouldn't be able to use it in that situation. But those are a few of the main things. We tell people to also stay in your car if you do get into an accident like that where it is cold, because a lot of times people will leave their car and try to find their way to somebody's house or a shelter, and they end up getting buried in the snow or disoriented by what's happening. So stay with your car, call for help, and when conditions get better, people can come to you. So hopefully you're not in that situation, but think about if you were, what kind of things you'd want to have in your car. And us and Ready Wisconsin have some tips on some things that you can pack up in your car to have in case that were to happen.
Yeah, super important. And this leads to pileups, very scary events. It's happened a few times in Wisconsin, notable one on 41 many years ago. If you get into that situation, Tim, and I know that it's safety tips and every situation is different, but overall, if you're faced with that, what would you recommend folks do?
So it's one of those worst case scenarios where the visibility gets very low, and if there's a chain reaction accident, there'll be cars kind of scattered all over the road, and people will be driving along at their normal speed, and all of a sudden they'll come to face with a semi that's parked on the highway, and they can't slow down, and they crash right into it. So if you want to go down the wormholes of being scared, just look at some YouTube videos of some of the pileups that have happened here and in Michigan in the past. It's just basically people can't see that there's a car or something parked on the road, and they go crashing into it. Another part, if you watch those videos, is people get out of their cars and try to run to the other side. Again, one of the better things, as scary as it might be, is to stay in your car and keep your seatbelt on for when other cars might come in behind you. Because if you're out and have a car or a semi or something like that plow into you, you're going to have much less of a chance of surviving that, as opposed to if you stay in your car. So obviously, just avoiding that altogether is helpful, but we know people are traveling for work and having to go other places. But that's why the standard thing we tell people is just slow down. If there is snow or ice or anything like that, that's your best way to try to make it out of a situation like that, is to not get into something like that in the first place.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation after a quick break. Got Tim Halbach here from the National Weather Service Milwaukee Sullivan talking about Winter Weather Awareness Week. But overall, we're just going to talk about it because it's winter in Wisconsin. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
Ready!
We don't have time for spills.
Next.
We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
Brandon met a girl on a dating app. He finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving.
She must be a keeper.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me from the National Weather Service Milwaukee Sullivan, it's Tim Halbach, and we're continuing our conversation, Tim, with winter weather awareness, and turning our attention now to storm warnings, snow squall warnings, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But overall, forecasting snow in Wisconsin, I think it's an art. I love listening to all the different meteorologists trying to figure this out. But I love it. I think what's been the biggest thing that I've noticed from all of them is the awareness of a storm coming in. It doesn't, I think you got to get over the hump of whether it's going to be 10 inches or 5 inches or 2 inches. The prep of, okay, there is something coming your direction, have that action plan and getting thinking on it, I think works. But tell us, just kind of walk us through your general forecasting of snow coming into the area.
Yeah, so typically, we'll start kind of taking a peek at that 7 to 10 day forecast. Is there anything interesting out there? We tend to not get too excited at anything that comes, that far out, just because we've seen that quite a bit where there's something that looks really bad. But as time gets closer and closer, it either goes away or doesn't look quite as intense. So really within 4 to 7 days is when you might start hearing us just talk about that something is there. But really at that point, if you're seeing any sort of like actual numbers of, Madison's going to get 6.2 inches from this snowstorm that's 5 days away, that's way too far out to be that precise on what they think is going to end up happening, because the ranges at that point can be really far apart. So we try not to get locked down until really within 1 to 3 days is when we have a lot more information that we can use to make a better forecast. Whatever forecast we give you at that point is the information that we have at that point. So another thing we tell people is just stay tuned to the latest forecast, watch for updates, because that forecast will change. A lot of people will comment like, well, that's not what it said yesterday. Well, that's, the information that we had available to us at that time. So as we get closer and closer to the event, we get more details, and that forecast will change, but for more information that comes in. So really the day of, we're trying to nail down timing, what people are going to really get the worst of the snow. But even as the snow is, starting, there can be things that happen within the big snow band that tell us, different areas are going to get hit harder than others. And really it can be the size of a county or less for where that heavy snow band sets up. So it can be really difficult to try to pin down exactly where that is. So on those days, you might see a big range of numbers from us, but those really are the main scenarios that we might see. So, but in general, the closer and closer you get to the storm, use it, as an awareness thing from 1 to 3 days out or beyond that. And then, as the day gets, closer and closer, that's when you should be taking action and kind of rearranging your schedule or, travel plans that you might have.
And piggybacking on that, when do you start issuing the warnings and the watches and the different things? And if you could walk us through each level, kind of leading up to, I don't know, the big ones, the blizzard, but whatever you want to, however that goes down.
So typically beyond 48 hours is when we would do a winter storm watch. That is, from 48 hours on out to maybe, so 2 to 3 days out is when you'll get a watch from us. And that's just a heads up, there's something that's coming through. It can either be for a winter storm, an ice storm, or a blizzard that we would issue that winter storm watch for. So the watch is at that period, and then a warning would be within 24 hours. And our criteria for a winter storm warning would be 6 inches or more in a 12-hour period. That's the general guideline. That's when we've seen the most impacts and issues from winter storms. So that's for winter storms. Ice storms, it's 1/4 inch of ice accumulation. And blizzard warnings would be for scenarios where we've got 35-mile-per-hour winds and visibility is under 1/4 mile, so whiteout type conditions for a 3-hour period, not just a brief amount of time. So really we try to reserve the blizzard warnings for the big ones when, it's going to be, you don't want to be traveling anywhere and something like that. The winter storm warnings are similar to that as well, but just might not be, as high end as a big blizzard that we would get here. So typically, again, with the warnings, we'll try to get those out about a day in advance. But again, that can change as we get closer and closer to seeing the whites of its eyes.
And I would say mostly we're going to see a lot of is the winter weather advisory still kind of our kind of the big one we're going to see most of the time. I mean, again, that you can't really ask you to say, well, most of the time we're going to, yeah, it's not, but you would become familiar with that if you live in Wisconsin long enough.
Yeah, the frequency of winter weather advisories is way higher than a lot of the other ones. It's a bit more of a nuisance type snow where it might be happening right at rush hour, that we know this amount of snow falling right at rush hour or right before is going to cause some issues. So it might be for about 2 inches or sometimes even less than that. Just situations where we know there might be issues that occur, like a freezing drizzle or light freezing rain accumulation is when we'd use the advisories. So ice is always really difficult whenever you get any of that on the roads, just because everything goes frozen at once. So we don't like those very much, but unfortunately they do occur. But yeah, the advisories are a little bit higher frequency just because the threshold's lower for it.
Yeah. And just like anything, we want you to hear the watches, the warnings, but I think Tim said it, you got to check back frequently, as you should anyways with the weather, to get the latest. Snow squall warnings. This might be something new or just like, well, what's a snow squall first off, Tim? So tell us a little bit about this.
So this is a program that started back in 2018. There's only been one of these warnings that have been issued in all of Wisconsin since that's come out. That was up in the Duluth Superior area up in far northern Wisconsin. This was a warning that was developed for these situations where you don't get a whole lot of snow, but you get a sudden burst of it that cause these pileups. And there's been a long history of this, particularly in the northeastern part of the United States. We've had some here as well, but just kind of envision where the roads are completely clear. You've got a sunny day. Temperatures are cold where the roads are frozen, but they're clear. And it's happening during the day where all of a sudden this Arctic front comes in and you get this 30 to 60 minute burst of snow where all of a sudden you go from these ideal conditions to just poof, you can't see anything. The roads are slippery, accidents happening everywhere. That's the situation where we'll use this new warning to let people know that this snow squall is happening. So again, we haven't issued any of them yet. So we're continuing to kind of make people aware that this is happening. It's something that will go off on your phone on a wireless emergency alert to say snow squall warning occurring in your area. So just be aware that when that happens, that's something that, hey, maybe this is a time just to get off the highway and let this pass for a little bit if you can afford to do that. Otherwise, just at a minimum, be aware that those hazardous conditions are going to be taking place. So it's a new warning as of a few years ago, and we haven't issued one yet. But that's something that, if you hear that terminology from us, that's the kind of expectation to go from this ideal conditions to all of a sudden just poof, white out, and the roads are a mess.
Yeah, and with due time, we'll run into that. It's Wisconsin. We're due up for it, so we'll keep an eye on that. Didn't leave a lot of time here, Tim, for cold weather and cold weather emergencies, but real quick, we definitely have had some long periods of cold weather in Wisconsin, and we got to be on the lookout for that. So any suggestions or safety tips on that front, make sure we're staying warm and keeping an eye on that front.
Yeah, just the typical things where those periods where we're talking about wind chills getting below -20, -35, that those are really the dangerous ones. So when you start hearing us talking about the cold, make sure that you're bundled up. Any skin that's exposed is going to be the main issue that you have there, and the longer you're out in it, the worse it'll be. So same stuff as what we've talked about in the past.
All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, as always, and answering all my random questions. That's most appreciated as well. You guys stay safe out there, and we look forward to having you back on the show. Hopefully, we get through this winter not too snowed in or frozen solid, but they don't call it the frozen tundra for nothing. So there's that.
No, well, I appreciate you having me again. Thanks, guys.
You bet. We'll check back in with Tim later in the season if things start to get intense, if you will. But otherwise, make sure you do review the National Weather Service Milwaukee Sullivan's website. A lot of great info out there. I pull a lot of information for our show on a regular basis. And readywisconsin.gov, that's a great source to get yourself prepared for any emergency. All right, we'll take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.
Severe weather can strike anytime, anywhere, but there's a simple way to stay safe. Hey, Jim Cantori here. I stay safe in dangerous weather by planning ahead. You can stay safe too with a few easy steps. Build an inexpensive kit with supplies for your family's needs. Write down important information like phone numbers and medications. Always talk with your family, and remember any pets in your planning. Be ready, be safe. Start your plan today at ready.gov/plan.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Wrapping up the show today. I want to thank our friends at the National Weather Service and, again, the Fitchburg Police Department for inviting us out this morning for their food pantry delivery. Donate to any pantry and help out those in need this winter season and all year long. Have a good weekend.